to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware.
Hello and welcome to the Aware Show. I am Lisa Garr, and it is a true joy and a pleasure to be here with you today because we get to connect and we get to have incredible conversations that communicate information that inspires positive growth and change. This is the dream and the vision that I've had for the Aware Show for 20 years. I literally had a dream about the Aware Show, and the dream came with that message to communicate information that inspires positive growth and change. It's something that the Aware Show has always provided and always done because I get to speak with brilliant thought leaders in the mind, body, and spirit community and share their thoughts with you. So first I want to share something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and it's about a lot of what we hear these days is these unprecedented times and these uncertain times. And I want to get rid of the uns in my life. And I want to bring in a whole new language for how we're experiencing our world today. And I feel, as with many other times of, quote, crisis, which I'm also eliminating from my vocabulary, but these times really have been redefined as we look back on them as the most creative times, the most opportunistic times for a pivot, the most innovative times. When we're going through massive change that we are now, we're going through times of opportunity, of innovation, and of creativity. Now, I am also completely remembering, and my heart is surrounded with the souls and the families who have lost loved ones during this time. And I am absolutely incorporating the souls and the families during this time into my thoughts and into my prayers. And with that in mind, we can still have this time of opportunity and creativity and assist in ways to do things different. And maybe even look at what we were doing maybe a year ago and look at really what wasn't working and try to create new ways of being. And all of these are just opportunities to really look into your soul. And we've been doing a lot of soul searching lately on the Aware Show. And joining me today is an incredible philosopher, a poet. He has taught in the fields of poetry and spirituality for over 40 years. Mark Nepo is a #1 New York Times best-selling author. He's published 22 books and 14, probably more audio projects at this time. And his work has been translated in over 20 languages. His newest book is called The Book of Soul. And that is why we're talking with Mark Nepo today about our soul. Mark, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Oh, it's great to be with you again, Lisa. It's always a joy.
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to start with that conversation about this declaration that I'm making to get rid of the uns out of my life and to bring in a new conversation. And I know that you're into that same conversation.
Well, I think that, one of the great paradoxes is that regardless of, let's talk about the difference between progress and incarnation. Progress is where, yes, one generation starts off with the gifts that the last one gave them. And that's all about, whether it's electricity or whether it's whatever it might be from one technology to another. And the other side, incarnation, is that it doesn't matter how many tools we have. Every generation has to go through the same set of thresholds and challenges as everyone before throughout history. And no one can shortcut that or take that away. That is the archetypal journey. Every person who ever lives will have to go through both love and suffering and pain and joy and trust and betrayal and everything. And so the details may be different, but it's our turn. And so I think that, it is true that, some of my work, one of the paradoxes that has been a great teacher for me is that all things are true. All things aren't fair or just, but all things are true. And so, yes, this is a terribly painful time, and it is also a time of great possibility and change. And you probably have run into the fact that the idiom in Chinese for crisis also means opportunity.
Mm, right, right. It does. And the opportunity comes when I've experienced this myself and I'll speak for myself, but this time, and I can only speak about opportunity and innovation and creativity right now because I've been through that. Eye of the needle, dark night of the soul, awakening, breakdown, rock bottom. What else do you want to call it? Cave, ball on the floor. I mean, I've done it. And I go in and out of it. But I see even in times where there are no opportunities, I think is the most important time to focus on creativity and innovation and opportunities, even with the absence of their existence right now, because this is how they're going to come about.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is so, in times of crisis, the things that all the traditions speak of, they're not abstract, they become more relevant and real. And so I think one of the things that's so important that I believe in is that it's not about reframing or turning from difficulty to possibility or from sadness to joy. It's through the fullness of our humanity that we release our better angels. And so this is, this it's not, I think gratitude is such an amazing resource and antidote to despair. But, honestly, right, we're never grateful while we're in it. Of course not. When I'm in pain, yeah, I'm grateful for it. Right. No,
No.
but gratitude is the faith that while I can't see it, I know that this will in time be growthful. And it reminds me of Václav Havel, he was the first president of the Czech Republic in the late 80s when the communist rule fell. And he was a poet and a playwright, so he was a poet president. But his
Wow.
definition of, yeah, and his definition of hope has been so helpful to me. He said, hope isn't the optimism that things will turn out well, but the belief that no matter how things turn out, they will have meaning.
I can't tell you how many people that I have interviewed that tell me story after story for 20 years, Mark, of going through that level of crisis and looking back on it with gratitude. It was a cancer journey, it was a bankruptcy, it was a failed marriage, it was whatever it is. And it turns out they always look back and say this was now then, after time had passed and some of the pain and the shock went away, there was time for inner reflection. So my question for you is, can we go through that inner reflection whilst in the middle of it?
Well, I think yeah. I mean, that's a wonderful question, and it brings up a couple of things I'd love to share about that. As human beings, we often pause, like we will, focus and study and look at things like pain or beauty or joy or resilience so we can better understand it. But they don't appear separately in life. They appear all together. And one of the mysteries about life is that it is it is life in its wholeness that is resilient and resourceful and ever present. So, for example, water, which we all learn at an early age is made out of hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. But I can't say to you, oh, could I have a glass of the hydrogen, please?
Right.
even if you could do it, it would no longer be water and it would no longer be quenching. And love and suffering and joy and pain and the difficulty of the process and yet the gratitude, it's all like one water of life. And somehow we have to help each other drink it and get the resource out of it.
I know that this is challenging for a lot of people to hear, and at the same time, it's necessary. I have so many people that I know have lost friends and loved ones and parents, and it's, for me to even say to them, go into inner reflection right now. It's not, they're not going to hear it, and I get that. And at the same time, maybe later they can listen to this or read the book and say, okay, now I'm ready. So what should I be looking at? Where do I start? You take us on a journey in the Book of Soul. Take us through that a little bit.
Well, the Book of Soul and really the image that opens, that gives a doorway to it, is the image of birth, which, we're all here physically because of the wonderful courage of our mothers to actually bring us here. I remember when my mother's gone now, but when I was in college, I saw a documentary. I was a freshman in college of an actual childbirth. And of course, being a young person, I had no idea what was involved. And I saw this long labor, and I left that documentary and called my mother up and said, "Oh my God, thank you, thank you." But the image is that once we're here, we go through a second labor, which is the experience of a lifetime, which involves all of the joy and suffering, all of the reflection, all of reaching out to each other so that the soul can be birthed on earth. And there is no shortcut for this. And it is through our humanness, our full range of feeling, that I can reach the bottom of my emotions and feeling and personality. And if I'm authentic enough, I trip into the common center we all share. And that's what's healing. That's what's healing. And that's where compassion lives.
That is a beautiful word, the common center we all share in the middle of this you call the human tribe. And it is true at this particular time in life, we are, as a human tribe, more bonded than we've ever been from all that is going on. Yes, we're polarized, but we're polarizing ourselves on really pretty much three main issues. And it has to do with the virus, it has to do with social justice, and it has to do with politics, and I would say climate. And that we're together as a united entire globe on these four issues. And we have never really been together on issues before. It's an important time in history, and it has to, contribute to everything. It could be the pandemic, it could be social media, it could be something, but we really need to look at this moment in history, and we can even just take this collective moment and collectively grieve the losses from this particular pandemic as a collective soul. I mean, really think about that. Can absorb your loss.
Well, let's talk about grief for a minute, because this has been hitting me and my reflection on all this. And when the pandemic began back in February, March, it really struck me and echoed a lot with my cancer journey. And and other our viewers probably from some of my work, I'm a long-term cancer survivor. And in my 30s, I almost died from a rare form of lymphoma. And one thing that echoed was, back then, when I was diagnosed, I went one day I had a huge tumor growing on my skull, and I went one day to a doctor and was told I had a rare form of cancer, and I was stunned and like, you must have the wrong guy. Are you sure you have the right folder? And terrified. And when I left that day, the door I had come into for that appointment to go back to my life was gone. There was no way back to life before that appointment. And when the pandemic hit, I feel this has happened worldwide to humanity. The old world is gone. There is no going back. And this engenders loss and grief. Now, a couple of things when we encounter grief, and I know remember Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the wonderful mother of the modern hospice movement, and her stages of grief, which were not sequential, but more like a constellation, and they were that people facing loss and grief go through denial, anger, bartering, depression, and acceptance in no particular order, and we can get stuck in those. So I really feel that I agree, united at the deepest level and bonded on these huge issues worldwide. And there are pockets of our society and worldwide who are stuck in these stages of grief that the pandemic has opened. The old world is gone. We have huge parts of our society that are in denial. No, it's a hoax. It didn't happen. It's not here. As people are dying in front of our faces. And there are people who are stuck in anger. No, I'm not going to wear a mask. And what are we protesting? Biology? Gravity?
The anger comes from the loss. The loss
Yes.
of, so much
And
loss has happened that it's just sadness that's covered up by anger.
And
Loss of
what
jobs,
happens,
loss of life, loss of so much loss.
and what happens personally as well as collectively, if we don't commit to the courage of the inner reflection that you were mentioning, then when we get angry, because anger always comes out of hurt.
Sadness.
And if we never do that inner reflection or that honest self-examination or sit with each other in that authenticity, we simply replay the anger and we never heal the hurt.
Right. It's just like if somebody were to, a drunk driver were to kill your loved one, you would be furious at the drunk driver. And that's like we're furious at this whole COVID experience. And those of us that have lost, entire companies and careers and loved ones, it's easy to get angry about because it just seems like such an injustice. But there's really nowhere to point. I mean, you could point the finger in a million different places. But to your point, if you don't get out of that cycle, you will not be able to move forward. You will get stuck repeating the same cycle. And those are the ones that will be left behind in this pandemic. And I've heard this from many different prophecies, everything. I've heard this from so many different sources. It feels true to me.
Well, and one other thing that's been very touching to me is that we have been forced into a global Sabbath. The word Sabbath literally means, in the Jewish tradition, the one day we don't turn one thing into another. This pandemic has forced us to stop scheming, even dreaming, and going from here to there, and manipulating, and worrying, and preparing, or not preparing, or everything. Stop. And we have been forced to stop and see the miracle of life as it is everywhere. And this engenders wonder and a lot of discomfort. The great Danish philosopher Kierkegaard said, anxiety is the dizziness of freedom.
Yeah. What? Anxiety is the dizziness. Wow, that's so.
And
anxiety is explain that.
Well, okay, so I didn't talk to Kierkegaard, so I can't tell you what he meant, but I can tell you what it says to me.
Okay.
And I don't think it means the anxiety like when I'm going to go to the dentist. I think it means the anxiety that comes when the bottom is pulled out from us and we're kind of like, where's foundation now? What's going on now? And a way to understand this is imagine a little bird, fledgling birds when they learn how to fly. They don't know that they're supposed to fly. You know how it happens? The parent birds, one day, they just push them out of the nest. And so imagine the little bird is falling, little heart pounding, it goes, and it starts desperately pumping its wings, and that, I'm supposed to do this. And so in that when it falls, from the moment it's pushed out to the moment it discovers it's supposed to fly, yeah, anxiety is the dizziness, the disequilibrium of, well, wait a minute, where, what now? Where's ground now? What's supposed to happen now? Which is that in between what you were mentioning, between the pain and the loss and the discovery of a new way.
Yes, it's interesting. That also means structure too. I mean, think about the fact that the bird has been kicked out of the nest of structure and it's going into structurelessness, where the bottom literally falls out from underneath the bird and they're forced to fly. But what you said was so key. Instinctually, they tap into that DNA that they're meant to fly.
Yeah.
And we as a society and humanity are the same. We're meant to fly. We just lost our wings because they got automated.
Well, and this is another lesson I've learned that comes from bird life and sea life, and it comes from, I did mention it in my the book on community, which we had talked about more together
Yes,
than alone.
my favorite books. I love that
Oh,
book.
thank
Yes,
you.
love that book.
And in there, so there was the first time I ever went down that beautiful US 1 on the West Coast in California, that road.
Yes.
And I drove one time, took a week and drove from San Fran to LA and then flew home. But right around Monterey, and there are those like stone little islands that are about, quarter of a mile off the coast. And so it was a rough day, and I stopped and was watching this one, and it was completely covered with sea life. It was covered with cormorants and seagulls and otters and sea lion, everything. And Lisa, there wasn't a spot. They were literally like laying on top of each other. And I kept watching this, and I realized normally they would be territorial. There would be spaces, but they all were exhausted from getting out of the rough water, that when they were exhausted, there was room for everyone. They had exhausted themselves of their differences. And I think that during this pandemic, during all the divisiveness, yet while we're bonded underneath, I think we're in the midst of exhausting ourselves of our differences. And little by little, there will be room enough for everyone.
Well, it's interesting because I'm envisioning this mound of sea lions and sea life and so forth, and that they all pile on top of each other, yet they form a whole that way. So they're able to withstand the waves more and the harshness of the environments and the elements more by being this whole. And more than just one sea lion laying on a rock that could be easily washed over by a strong wave. And that's interesting that we really can kind of join more together. And I do find that interesting. I think a lot of collaboration is happening. I see it in a business level, in the trades and so forth that come through. There's a lot of mergers right now. There's companies that are in trouble or are being swept up by other companies that are helping them survive in a different way. But maybe this is the time of collaboration. Maybe it's hard right now to go at it on your own. And if there's an opportunity to merge or to find some assistance out there, then maybe this is the time that we do that. This is the first time ever that we should do that.
I think this echoes a great central paradox about living, and that is no one has been here who's you. No one can see what you see, feel what you see, live what you're supposed to live. And the other side, no one can make it alone. In fact, there's a certain kind of illness, mental illness, psychological distress that comes from thinking you can make it alone. And another great example of merging and needing each other is in the East China Sea. There are fishing villages that are literally, they used to be hundreds of years ago. People would individually have these rafts, and they would fish in the sea, and then monsoons would come and they would be destroyed, and many would lose their lives. And they started to connect they're wooden rafts because together they could, like you suggested about the rock off Monterey, they could withstand the monsoon. So now there are floating villages that are, you know, 400 or 500 living rafts that are all bonded together, and they can withstand the storms that they couldn't withstand individually.
That is fascinating. I'd love to see a picture of that,
You can Google it and you'll see a beautiful picture of it.
That is really cool. That is a great example of how, you come up with these most amazing examples. It remind me of the title of your book on community.
More together than alone.
How many times have I said that phrase lately? More together than alone. I just said it today. It is so timely. I mean, I interviewed you about that book a couple of years ago.
Yes.
It is so timely about the fact that we are stronger together than alone, and we've got to figure this out together. I mean, look at all of the people that came together to figure out this vaccine, and all of the Army and the Navy and the Marines. They're all distributing this thing, and it's the first thing that's brought us all together.
One of the things that we're challenged with opportunity that comes out of crisis is that personally and societally, there are always three questions that come up. Like now the old world is gone, things aren't working the way they did. And so then we have to ask ourselves, okay, what needs to be repaired? What needs to be reimagined? And what that has broken needs to stay dismantled.
We should write that down. Repaired, reimagine.
And what needs to stay dismantled, like racial, institutional racial injustice. But personally and societally, we are challenged with those questions. Okay, the old world is gone, things aren't working, and we just can't go back to normal. We're never going back to normal. We're going to have to say, okay, what needs to be repaired? What can we not do without? What, now that it's broken, needs to be reimagined, that we can actually build it in a better way? And what that has broken, thank God it broke, and maybe we should leave it be dismantled.
Maybe it needed to break. That's why I'm saying that this is a time of extreme, almost critical creativity. Critical creativity and critical sources of opportunity and innovation, critical innovation. And that's what's needing to happen. And I see that happening at just breakneck speed right now, where, look at the whole COVID testing industry. It popped up like overnight. Now there are thousands of COVID testing facilities, and now they're pivoting into vaccine facilities. I mean, look at the level of creativity and innovation that had to happen at that. I mean, it's just like, SpaceX. It's moving so fast, and driverless cars. I mean, if you tap into the world's creativity veins, you'll find a lot of innovation is happening. I've been listening to this great podcast that I love. It's called How I Built This, and it's this guy named Guy Raz, and he's talking. There's a resilience series, and it's all of entrepreneurial startups and how they built it and what the challenges were that they went through. But the resilience series is specific around the pandemic, and he's interviewed people like the creators of Airbnb when travel disappeared, and owners of various restaurant industries when the restaurant industry has been shuttered. And it's so fascinating to see how people pivot. But one of the themes that I've really noticed is they always have partners or collaborators or mentors. And it goes back to your concept of we've got to be in this together in our pivot.
Well, and I also think, and this is also an archetypal thing throughout history, I believe, and that is we have to constantly rediscover our humanity and our innate closeness, that bond you mentioned, because when outer progress, which I love, I love technology. Look at us here, right? I mean, this wouldn't be possible. And so I don't want to do without progress, but there is a cost, a human cost for progress. So for instance, and we are being forced now to rediscover our humanity through this painful pandemic. But so for instance, 150 years ago, before so much of technology, we wouldn't have electricity. We would have to cut wood. We'd have to, to get heat. We'd have to hunt. We'd have to build our own homes. So there was no need for gyms and or physical working out. But so I don't want to do away with progress, but we have had to compensate by having physical aerobics because we don't have to do that physical labor. Well, now we are in 2020, and everything, like you mentioned, the technology is going so fast and so far, and now we have to go another step. And to compensate, we have to develop spiritual aerobics
Huh.
because, yes, what's being the cost now is costing us that inner reflection. So an example would be, my father who's now gone, he didn't get to travel much in his life, but he always, subscribed to National Geographic magazine, and he could
Yeah.
see pictures because of photography of places he would never be in the world.
Hmm.
Well, now in our age, not even pictures, we can go online and we can look over the shoulder of someone and see a video of someone climbing Mount Everest or
We can
being in
Google the rafts in the sea. I'm really looking for
exactly.
yes.
So that's wonderful, but it does not replace the inner reward for doing the climb. So I can look at a picture of Mount Everest, but does not replace what happens to us inwardly when we make the journey. And so
Mm.
we have to compensate with spiritual aerobics now. Don't give up the progress, but so that we keep the inner life alive, so that the person who holds the technology is as lit as the technology.
Mm. Mm. Okay, so this is great to talk about, but how do you do this? What is your recommendation of a spiritual practice that maybe we can ask people to join in on with us? I love the idea of repair, reimagine, and things that need to stay dismantled.
Well, this is very much, all the work that I do and all of my teaching, and not just me, but other teachers for spiritual practice. This is the value of all, is to develop a personal spiritual practice so that your inner life meets the demands of outer life. Because life happens all at once. And so that means, what's in your toolbox so that when I am afraid, I can feel safe again. That when I am confused, I can get clear again. When I fall down, I can get up again. So what that might mean. So, everybody has to personalize that. But one of the things that basic eternal things is whenever life in its difficulty, as we're experiencing now, pushes us away. And our job, one of the quiet courages, is when we're pushed away, is to hold nothing back and lean back in, to be 100% present. What is that? So, what can help you do that? You can give your full attention to whatever is before you. It could be a piece of bread. It could be the bird feeder. It could be broken glass in an alley. You give your full presence and attention to whatever is before you until you start to re-feel our connection with everything.
Mm.
And so that raises two medicines that are eternal, that have never failed, are holding and listening. They're
Holding.
holding and listen. There has never been a time in my life where I have held myself or another or been held that it hasn't been restoring and healing. There has never been a time that I have listened to or been listened to that hasn't been restoring and healing and revealing of that bond. I may not always hear what I want to hear, but if it's truthful and kind, it helps me grow. So I would invite people who are listening to us, first off, to do a personal inventory of those three questions we mentioned. What needs to be repaired in your life? What needs to be reimagined? And what needs to stay dismantled? And then secondly, where can you hold nothing back and give your full attention today? And where can you hold and listen?
Ah, you know, I was reading my horoscope the other day because, look, I'm reaching. I need every solution I can get. I mean, we have another company in the entertainment industry, and we are trying to save it. And it's been, it's been a tough road. And so I was reading in my horoscope that this is one of the most deepest times of focus and listening that I've ever gone through. And I feel that. I feel like I just need to sit and watch a rock not move because things are just move so much right now. And just to focus on that and not feel wrong for it. Because I've always been a doer and need to get out there and fix and do and create and call. And this is the first time where I need to just listen. And it's counterintuitive for me, but I also feel that there's strong messages that are waiting to come through at this time. So I invite anyone who's kind of the overachiever synonymous like me that really just can finally sit and tune in and stare at something that doesn't move and listen for a little while. Even if it's 20 minutes a day, it's going to really help you center. At least try. Just try it.
Well, what listening does, because these forms of being are also active. We in the modern world have cast them as, oh, that's inactive, but they are really active. They're just deeper. And listening like that, it cleanses our eyes and our ears and our heart and our mind, and then we see more clearly. And when we see more clearly, we make different choices. This is the real value of introspection, of self-awareness. Is, the Sufis tradition has a custom ritual known or practice known as polishing the heart until it becomes a mirror. Wow. I love that. And
polishing the heart until it becomes a mirror. Nice.
Mirror. Because when the heart is clear and a mirror, it reflects all of life and all souls. And so when you are clear, I can see all of humanity in you. When I am clear, you can see everything in me. And we can't stay that way because we're human, because windows get dirty, we clean them. So yes. And that's the whole purpose of a practice of introspection.
That's kind of what the Book of Soul is about, right? It's 52 different paths to living what matters. It's your introspection and things to do every week into finding what matters. It's a journey, which is one. Yeah.
Well, I try with all of with all of my books, as you know, I try to have it be a companion, and I encourage my readers to take their time and not read all the way through, but read a chapter, live your life. Read a chapter, live your life. Be in conversation between those things. And I always offer questions and dialogue questions, journal questions, meditations to help you personalize these things in your own life.
You have a story from the book that I wanted you to tell, if you can. One of the stories about the Peace Corps worker just came home from Nigeria. Could you share that with us?
Was that the one about when on the road where he was?
Kufa,
Yes, okay, Kufa, yes. Oh my God, this is a powerful story. And I heard this because this man had told someone in my life who was in the Peace Corps, and he told it to me. So, in the road from Nigeria, from inner Nigeria to the coast, is a very dangerous road, and it's not safe. There's a lot of bandits and terrible things. It's lawless, and so Kufa was making his way to the coast, and you had to drive and make sure you got there before nightfall so that you were safe. And along the way, he came across someone who had broken down on the side of the road and also needed to get to a hospital. And he couldn't really move him, and he couldn't help him, and it was also getting late, and so he didn't know what to do. And he finally decided he had to leave, and he left to make it to the coast. The next place he could, he stopped and left word at a hospital who didn't have the wherewithal. Their few ambulances were already being used elsewhere, and so now it wasn't clear if this person was going to be rescued or not. And Kufa went on and made it to the coast, but he never found out what happened to that person, and it always stayed in his heart. Should he have gone back? Should he have taken him with him? Did he do enough? And it's a very powerful, poignant story that there, but for the grace of God, any one of us could easily be. And in this time that we're in, it's led me to think, I know in my life, and this is a mystery of the heart, that whenever I feel like I don't have any more left to give, when I try to give then, I'm always amazed that not only is there more, but that's when my deepest gifts somehow show themselves. And so I really encourage all of us, especially in this time when you feel like you have nothing left to give, try anyway. Try anyway and be surprised.
Yeah.
Be surprised.
Yeah. It's an opportunity to do that right now as well. I find that during this time where, if you don't have enough for, gifts and holiday and so forth, it would be a wonderful way to spend your time volunteering, because it is one of the greatest gifts is to spend time with others. And it is an interest, and just pay attention to what happens, because givers gain. He said it was a wonderful concept of BNI, of the networking group, is when you give, you get so much in return without ever expecting it. It just happens. And
well, I think there's an amazing, I think that's so true. There's a small verse of mine that's been a real teacher for me. It goes, the mystery is that whoever shows up when we dare to give has exactly what we need hidden in their trouble.
yeah, so true, 100% true, absolutely. Okay, wait, I have a question about the story you told about the man in Kufa. So was there an end to that? Did he always want to know what happened? Did he ever resolve that? Was it
As far as I know, he didn't.
he just lived
As
with the
far
remorse of what if?
The teaching of, if ever in that situation again, is there more that I can do? Is there more that I can do? So this leads to a very powerful parable that that speaks to every time, but especially our time. And this question: so two monks are studying long and hard because one day they're going to keep an appointment with Buddha at the top of a mountain. So the day comes and they set out, and they're halfway up the mountain, and one of them breaks his leg. So they spend the night, and the one who's well takes care of him, and then in the morning he fully intends to leave him and as comfortable as possible and keep his appointment with Buddha at the top of the mountain. But in the morning, the one who broke his leg isn't doing well. He has a fever, and it's clear he can't just be left there. And then the parable ends there with the question, what would you do? And what this parable holds is that when we have more people in a generation who will keep their appointment at the top of the mountain, no matter what, we will engender an age of cruelty. When we have more people who will discover that tending their broken other is the summit, we engender an age of compassion. And every day, every one of us, individually and collectively, we face this choice over and over. And it doesn't matter what you put on top of the mountain: God, financial wealth, security, family, whatever. When we insist on keeping our appointment at the top of the mountain, rather than giving where we're asked to give, we risk engendering a generation of cruelty.
Wow, that could definitely have to do. Sometimes, though, Mark, it's a time of feeling helpless also. What do
Oh
you
my
do about
God.
that? Yeah.
Well, I think, I think that it's such a humbling thing to feel powerless and helpless. And I think that, and also by being forced to be still and homebound, we give anyway.
Okay.
We can't know what gesture will help. Like if I know you're not well and I can't see you, but I pray for you and I send you light and love, I can't know if that's you're gonna receive that or not. But that's real functional faith, is I do it anyway.
Mm,
I,
that is
I
true. And we've known and we learned so much about, the field and what Lynn McTaggart talks about in terms of the power of intention, and so did Wayne Dyer, everybody, you too, about that power of intention to really know it doesn't really even matter what the if the person responds to you or not, that you're sending them and surrounding them with love. And as I said, I have had many friends that have lost loved ones and even are suffering, and just knowing that they're being thought of makes them not feel so alone in all of it, could be very, very isolating. Yeah, yeah. I understand that. And so tell me a little bit about what you're doing around creating community right now. You have classes that you're doing
yes,
on a regular
I've
basis, right?
yeah, I've had to learn like everyone to teach online, and hopefully when we'll be doing both when we can go back out and be in person. And it's been remarkable. It'll never replace being together in person, but it's actually quite meaningful and touching and real. And so so I'm offering, I have been, and this is my third webinar, a 3-session webinar that meets uh, for an hour and a half, 3 Sundays in a row for one integrated program. And this one, it will be January 24, 31, and February 7th on finding inner courage, our walk in the world. And people can go to live.marknepo.com to find details and to register. And it's been a wonderful experience. And so I've grown a lot for having to learn how to do this.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I mean, I know that you would write by hand the poetry and at one point, and now moved that onto computers. So you're getting there, Mark. Yeah, embracing the technology of connecting virtually. It's not going to last forever, but it does provide a safe alternative to still having connection. And I think in a couple of years, we'll be so done with virtual connections, we'll be ready to get together. But it's going to take a little bit of time. And this is what we've got now. So I think that is really, really great. So in addition to that, you have other communities as well people can join too, right?
Yes, there are other, and people can go to that website, live.marknepo.com, or just marknepo.com, because as we're in this flux, I do offer year-long journeys, and I'm also still, teaching at different retreat centers and different things. And of course, right now it's all online, but already, there are plans for next fall and going forward. So people, if they go to my website, they can find out different things as it unfolds.
So, to that note and how things are changing and being created and innovating, there are some authors such as yourself I've spoken with that absolutely love not traveling and the headaches that come with that, and it's been a real nice break for them. And then others that really miss the connection. Which boat are you in?
Well, I'm a little bit of both. I mean, I so love being with people in circle and in this kind of journey and doing this work we're talking about in person. It's so magical. And it has been magical online, but it's different. And so it has been, the logistics of traveling, but I so loved traveling, I mean, I love being in cities, and I love being with people, and I love wandering anonymously in cafes, and so I do miss that a lot, and look forward to it. But it's also been a blessing that a lot of time there's a whole host of people who have been coming to my work that wouldn't be able to come if I'm teaching somewhere in California, but through online, my God, there's been people from all over the world that can just through Zoom be there. So that's been a real blessing and unexpected to connect with people all over.
I think it's definitely going to stick. I mean, talking about creativity and innovation, even in the educational world, these online classes and courses will stay. And a lot of them will stay. There will be a combination of in-person, because it's really important for the little ones especially. But some of what we've done here will stick. And just as it has in every other massive phase of innovation that we've had with, the agricultural age and the industrial age and the technology age, and now we're in the pandemic age. And so we have a place here an opportunity to really make a difference and change the way that we're doing things for the better. It's definitely less harsh on the environment. So that seemed to be what Mother Earth wanted.
Well, and it brings me to one other quote that is very relevant to now and all we've been talking about. It's from the German philosopher Nietzsche, and came later in life. And unlike a lot of his work, is very different. And he said, "I want to see what is necessary as beautiful, so I can be one of those who makes things beautiful."
I love it.
I think that might be the anthem of our day.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we've got to find the beauty in all of this somehow. And you found the beauty in your cancer journey and through communities everywhere, through your book, More Together Than Alone. But it's now about the soul and the journey of the soul, which we are in. And the Book of Soul is a wonderful way to be able to experience that. So thank you so much for joining me. This has been, as always, an amazing conversation. It goes by so fast when we get into this level of depth.
Thank you, Lisa, for your work. It's always a joy to be with you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. And again, marknepo.com or live.marknepo.com to find out some of the events that are going on. Great. Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate you.
All right. And I also want to thank our incredible community here, wherever you're watching from. You can also hear us on the Aware Show podcast, wherever you hear your podcasts. You can check out this show and any other show on our podcast. Some of our great authors that that are no longer with us, like Wayne Dyer and some other amazing people, are on our podcast. And you can also check out some of our latest material as well. So it's all there for you. If you like what you hear on that, please share it with a friend, because inspiration shared is wonderful. All right. I'm Lisa Garr, and as always, I invite you to stay aware.